Let's go now to ABC Radio Melbourne Mornings host Raf Epstein. For more, Raf, it's been a whirlwind, hasn't it? Ben Carroll has just been named as the new Premier. What do you make of what's happened so far today?
Well, the most important thing, the headline is the plotters have won. They have been trying to knock Jacinta Allan off for a number of months. They've won. That chaos that my colleagues James Oden and Richard Willingham and Rachel Eddy have been covering, that was a rearguard action by the people who were basically pissed off. They were furious. They thought that minor things had been spun up into character assassination of Jacinta Allan. They lost. I've got to say that the people who've been pushing for change have been very confident with me over the phone. I'm sure there have been similar people saying the same things to people like Richard Willingham. They've been very confident. It's almost like being listening to sort of a mafia hit. We will win. We have a plan. It will roll out according to our plan. And quite a few of the people who, in the end, I think you would have to say, brought Ben Carroll into this, they were very clear this is an issues problem. It's about the Royal Commission, it's about crime, and it's about the suburban rail loop, the big mega project. They've won. It's a really ugly day today for the Labor Party. It's not good. It doesn't look great. It is the sort of thing people might remember in November. But those concerns in the media and from the opposition about corruption, about the need for much tougher laws, expect things like mandatory sentencing, expect a Royal Commission. There were people inside the Labor government. This wasn't some sort of campaign that was only in the headlines of some newspapers. This was people inside the cabinet room who wanted action. The only way they could get action on a Royal Commission and crime was to get rid of Jacinta Allan. It was messy, but it's worked.
Just talk us through, for those outside Victoria, a little bit more about the so-called big bills, that issue, and also the rail loop that you spoke about moments ago.
I'll come to the suburban rail loop. It's a big issue because it costs so much money, and the plotters think, hey, if we could divert some of that money to other projects, maybe that can answer a lot of concerns. You really need to think about the long time frame of the construction union problems in this state. We had a corrupt union in the 1980s, the construction union, the BLF, that got deregistered. One of the first things the coalition tried against Dan Andrews in 2014, they made ads, attack ads, when he was opposition leader saying, look, if you vote for Dan Andrews, you actually get the CFMEU. That's been a feature at every election. And at every election, Dan Andrews increased his vote and increased the number of seats in the parliament. What is different is over the last parliamentary term, there's always been some reporting and there's clearly been some issues. What is different is that over the last parliamentary term, significant media, most importantly The Age, but also the ABC and the Financial Review, but most importantly The Age, they've gathered some really substantial allegations. That's what led to the CFMEU going into administration nationally, and there's been a separate process to try and clean up in Victoria. Now, the state government under Jacinta Allan, who's been in charge of all of these big projects as a minister and then as Premier, they did some stuff. They changed some things, but they've just been hammered by these constant revelations about criminal links to construction, about inflated costs in construction in multi-billion-dollar projects because of those criminal links. Jacinta Allan didn't do enough about it. Dan Andrews has done a lot of really significant things in this state. One of the weak spots, one of the blind spots was always around regulation. Those issues around Crown Casino that, again, needed to go to Royal Commissions in other states. That has been building and building and building. Jacinta Allan could not talk about anything else because there were daily revelations about criminal links, cost inflation inside construction. At some point, people inside her own government this year were saying, enough, you've got to hold a Royal Commission. That's the coalition's position at the moment. The Liberal leader, Jess Wilson, if she were to become Premier in November, she was going to have a Royal Commission. That became untenable. It's not the only issue, but it really is, it speaks to some of the long-term weaknesses of this government. They were able to outweigh those weaknesses by a lot of the other things they did do that clearly a lot of voters saw as positive. Ultimately, that's what's brought Jacinta Allan down, and it's still one of the biggest issues that will hold them back come November.
Raf, you said that this is a sign that the plotters have won. How is that perception going to go down amongst state voters ahead of the election in November?
That's a great question. I wish I knew the answer. The other thing that's happening in Victoria, which is happening around the country, you've got the three major parties, the three major political groupings, all polling in the 20s. You've got the Coalition on about 27% in an average of the polls. You've got the Labor Party on about 25%, so coming second in an average of the polls. And you've got One Nation coming at about 23%. So that's really neck and neck. And to have One Nation getting close to the same vote as the major parties, it makes this election even harder to read. We're going to have a whole lot of three-cornered contests where we're not even sure whose votes will go to preferences and whose votes will be number one and number two. You're asking me, how does all of this translate to, you know, what's in the minds of voters in November? We're renowned in this state for having a Liberal Party that is fantastic at political self-immolation. It was 11 days ago that they kicked out someone called Moira Deeming. She has been the focus point for a lot of issues. So Victoria, as someone actually in the federal government said to me, Victoria just does everything a little bit more. We did lockdowns a little bit more, we do weekly demonstrations a little bit more, and we do internal political ructions just a little bit more than the rest of the state. I can't tell you how this will reflect on whether or not people will vote Labor in November. It doesn't look good. They've got a new person now. They've got Ben Carroll, but he's been there the whole way along. One of the problems he has, just to illustrate how difficult things are for him, we've had 2 teachers' strikes. He's the Education Minister. That union just announced there's another strike coming up in early August. So parents are again going to have to organise daycare for their kids who should be at school. So it's not like he's a clean skin. He's been Justice Minister. Crime is an issue. He's been at the Cabinet table that has not had a significant discussion about a royal commission into corruption. It'd be very easy. Like next week, once all the dust settled and no one remembers today, oh, hang on, Ben Carroll, why didn't you do this about crime? Did you speak up about crime in Cabinet? Did you speak up about corruption in Cabinet? Like that's not a great place to be. That's my way of saying the problems don't go away. Not as many people who are voters know who Ben Carroll is. Maybe that's a good thing. Maybe that's a bad thing. But it's certainly sets up a very unpredictable election contest. We are 12 weeks away from an election campaign. We're just 14 weeks away from early voting, when people will actually be able to fill in a ballot paper. So it's a good time to be covering politics in Victoria.